Hello, everyone. Good morning or good afternoon, depending on the time zone you're in. We'll get started in a couple of minutes. We have people entering the waiting room. But while we wait, if people can kindly introduce themselves via the chat, that would be awesome. If you don't mind just mentioning who you are and the community you're from, that'd be great. And we are going to be recording this, just so people know. Just there are some people that weren't able to attend, and some people want to dig back in later. And so once we're done recording, we'll post it up on our website on the pointtime.info as the webinar section. So good to see some familiar faces. Some of you I only see once a year. Feels like it's around this time. Others more frequently.
Where did you say we'll be able to access the recording?
I'll put a link in the chat. We're gonna put it up on the. I'll show you the beauty of having multiple monitors. So this is our support page for admins for FAQs. But up in here, support under webinars. This is the last one we just did. This is more, and so the way we're breaking these out, I know I'm kind of getting the presentation a little bit, but it's all good. This is more early stage prep work. Now we're at so we're still going to cover some last minute preps and details, but really focusing on the conducting. And then post count, we're going to be really digging into data cleanup and then doing the research and evaluation and packaging up the report results for HUD. So that's coming. So, but I'll put the link for this. It's going to let me. All right, it's my third monitor. That's why I wasn't looking. Chat. Oh, awesome. Looks like we have most of the time zones covered. I know some of you are, I know from your names where you're from too that haven't introduced themselves yet. But we've got a few others out there. But it's 3 minutes after, so let's do this. I'll reclaim this screen. And I think we can get going. All right. So welcome everyone. My name is Matt Simmons, the president of Simtech Solutions. And if you're in this webinar, you hopefully are here to talk about getting ready for the point in time count that's about to happen. So here's our preliminary agenda. We're going to dig in, I'll let you give, I'm not going to read it all to you, but this is basically all the things you need to do, be thinking of now, and we are going to leave some time for Q&A. And I open it up to the Q&A piece to others in the, that are using our tech, and not just the tech side of it, that are managing point in time counts to share best practices. This is where we're currently at. This was from this morning, as far as how many responses have been collected using Counting Us through the years, how many count activities we've supported. and how many users have downloaded the app and used it to support their accounts. So, 54,922 is a lot of people. And this year, currently, I believe we're at, I think the last count was around 63 community. But we still have several that are coming on, and there's still room to, if your community wants to use the technology or is interested, we can still get you going. All right, getting your surveyor started. So we have these getting started flyers, and really the intent is to make it as easy as possible for you to say, you could print some of these out. You have deployment centers, you can send them to people. We can customize them with we actually have these templates you can download from the resources page of our website. And we can put a link to that in the chat as well. If someone can help me out with that, that'd be great. There's 2 getting started flyers, and it really depends on whether or not you use the volunteer portal option. So when you sign an agreement with us, you have the option to include a volunteer registration portal. If you do use that, then anyone that downloads, that registers, already has an account for counting us. And so the flow it takes out a step. So this is without the volunteer portal. And then there's it's a pared down version if you have the volunteer portal, because they already have an account. So again, these resources are available on the SimTech resources page, but really just make sure, and the QR codes, it's worth noting that if you scan the QR code, some magic happens behind the scene. I'm not sure how it happens. And it will direct them to the right app store. So, Google Play or the Apple App Store. But in general, without the volunteer portal, they're going to download the app. Once they get to that part, they're going to need to register, create an account, and enter in the setup key that's associated to your community. And if you don't know where that is, it's in the settings tab in the command center. If you're not an administrator, then you'll need to get that from your account administrator. And then once you enter that in, all of the survey information, and first off, all the questions that are specific to your community will be pulled down into your app. Right. So for those that have custom questions, that's how it works. It's that setup key or the volunteer registration portal ties all that back to your data store activity or account, your activity, and it pulls it down into the app. And then from there, they can go out and start counting. Now, everyone should be in pre-count mode right now. And so what that means is you can submit surveys all day long. They'll get ignored from the actual count when you switch that over. And it's worth noting for administrators, that there's so much planning that goes into this that it's one extra step, we understand, to switch from pre-count to live mode. And I'll show you how to do that if you haven't seen that. It's okay to switch it over a little early. You can always archive surveys that come in that were like, there's no way this was part of the count. This was, last night we didn't start till 6 o'clock in the morning or what have you. So you have that option to take some pressure off yourself, because you probably have a lot going on, right? So again, similar thing, just no registration because we've already done it to a volunteer registration portal. The beauty of the portal, for those that don't use it, is that it allows us to capture information about the person, their skills and experience. Are they part of an outreach team? Have they done this before? Are they willing to drive? Do they, you can ask questions about like languages spoken. You can ask if they have lived experience. And so or you can help, it can be used to establish count teams. So like if they want to say what company their nonprofit they want to count with, they can put that into there. So there's an advantage of using it, but it's overkill for some smaller communities. And so for that, even just for this webinar, we used Eventbrite. That's a pretty effective, cheap tool to use, and it may meet your needs. Difference being is ours is all integrated. So it's all in one place. You'll see it all. So leading up to the count, especially for larger communities, we have found it helpful to really think about roles and responsibilities. So it's not just the two levels of infrastructure where you've got, the count administrator and all the surveyors, because that's just too much on that one person. Or so in order to help spread out the work, we have roles and responsibilities that we've created as an outline that you can borrow from. Those are also on our support page. And really the way we look at it is we have SimTech as your tech providers and your support, right? So we do both. And for support, it's pit@simtechsolutions.com. That's how you get help. PIT. All right. Then you have the COC, the Continuum of Cares, count administrators, and they're providing the overarching monitoring and support for the count itself. Then there's a layer down potentially, not every region is going to do this, where they have a construct that we call jurisdictional leads. And jurisdiction is like a city or town, it's the way we're looking at it. It could be a county for they support like Texas Balance of State and some of the other larger balance states. I think we have like 13 or 14 balance of state continuums of care right now. And so county is a thing, and that could be the level. But like right here where I live in San Diego County, that is the COC. So that's too big of a jurisdiction. That's why I can use that construct. So, but what we have is we have the ability to create those regions and then assign a regional administrator to those regions. And the beauty of that is you're breaking up the responsibilities. We're bringing another layer down. You're training those people how to review the incoming survey results, how to create well-balanced count teams. It's just a little bit more logistics that's taken off of your shoulders. And then another layer down from there is the idea of a count team lead. So think of a large city. Last year, I'm going to use Alameda because we supported them. So Alameda County, within Alameda County, you've got Oakland, you've got Berkeley. Oakland is a large city. So within there, they had Oakland had their own jurisdictional leads, but then you could break up the city into team areas. And then from there, you can assign team leaders. And there's different roles and responsibilities you have for a team leader. Maybe they're the ones that have to go to the deployment center or towards, this nonprofits locations to get gift cards or care kits to bring back to their team. And maybe they know where to go and is what census tracts they need to cover, but they're choosing a team meetup location. So the Starbucks on 8th Street, whatever the location is, and they can put that into that details and capture details on that. They're messaging people on their team, hey, I got this area covered. Can you go over here? All those like smaller logistics, the granularity, looking at the maps. And, we do provide, some communities opted for print-friendly maps. So maybe they're the ones drawing on the map and saying, what, I want you to go over here and I'm going to go over here. And then we're going to circle back at 10 o'clock and, text me if you need anything. And then the last role and responsibility, obviously, is the surveyors. So, and we've got roles, support guidance just for the surveyors themselves. I used to use the term volunteers like way too often. And so we still call it the volunteer registration portal. But the reality is that we couldn't do this work without the people that do this every day. So you've got trained outreach, you've got nonprofit staff that may, be working at shelters, but that they're comfortable, they understand how to approach people, and you're just relying. You also have sometimes it's county employees, it's park rangers, it's librarians. You really have to go wide as far as casting that. And so it's not just volunteers, is the point. All right. So there's that. And SimTech team, and I did jump and skip introductions, and I'm sorry. Matt Simmons, president of SimTech. We've got a full crew here to support you. You probably get to know them, as your implementation is set up. But just know that we all have years of experience doing this, and we share the passion to do this well. And so my apologies for skipping the introductions. But just Simtech team, if you don't mind monitoring the chat, let me know if there's any questions I need to respond to. That'd be appreciated. So within the Counting S app, you have the option to choose which surveys are available for your community. Right. So in the contract that we send out, some of the surveys are free to add, but it's your community, it's your setup. So if you want to include like the known location survey or the shelter-based survey or the family unification survey, those are all survey instruments that are optional. You may want them, you may not. The vehicle makeshift shelter survey does have a price tag because there's additional logic there. So, and it's also not needed for every community. I will share though, that we are seeing a significant uptick in vehicle residency. So it's something definitely to pull at a little bit. And just be aware that there's a new variant of homelessness, if you will, that really didn't exist to the same extent years ago, especially in California and some of the southern communities we work with. You have the option to renaming your surveys once we create them. And we are seeing more, we used to just call it unsheltered survey, observation tally, and we can still do that. And some guidance, people know it, they'll know what to say. You have the option to rename those surveys in the settings page, settings and then surveys. And so there are some communities that are just changing. I am interviewing a person. I am observing a person. I am observing a vehicle. And really that's the hierarchy of how we want to present it. And you can actually display them, change the display order as well. Whenever possible, we like to lean in and we encourage leaning in towards the interview and gathering all the questions that are required by HUD. And then if you have custom questions, ideally those are more towards the bottom. And it's like, if you have more time, because we really need the homework exercise we have is we have to get this report to HUD to quantify the extent of homelessness and the characteristics of homelessness in your community. Then there's community-based research questions that might inform policy, might inform if you have any gaps, you just use it as a gaps analysis. I will say we are seeing communities in California asking about if people are homeless as a result of the wildfires. And if you aren't doing that and you're interested, just send us a help desk ticket and we can get that weaved in. We saw it with Texas. So I'm just using this as a moment just to share with some of the hurricanes and also in Florida and some of the southeastern communities where they wanted to ask if people were displaced as a result of natural disasters. It's a way to smooth out your trend lines if there's an anomaly in the data. So if there's something that's beyond your control, it's nice to be able to say when you're reporting back in the HUD-NOFO that yes, our numbers went up, but we can quantify the increase is partially, a result of fill in the blank. But any questions on the hierarchy of the survey instruments? Survey first when you can. If you can't survey someone, the observation tally is there. Many communities we work with have the qualifier up front on the observation tally to say, why didn't you interview the person? If you don't have that, and we have a standard set of responses, if you don't have that and you want that, it's a way to encourage people to go back and survey. We can add that in. It's putting that in. And then for the vehicles and makeshift shelters, the intent there is not to capture the vehicle makeshift shelter if you've already had a chance to either observe the person or ideally survey the person. Because otherwise we're going to be increasing your counts because we're deriving an estimate based on the vehicles and makeshift shelters. And we're adding that to the total later on. Okay. So pre-count mode, that's where we're at now. So in here, well, first off, in your setups, if you're using region count team management, you have the ability to provide details well, everyone has the ability to provide details of the account itself on the settings page. But then if you have different meetup locations and count assignments, because you're using the region and team management function, this is where you would put that in there. And then it's also worth noting, if you want to have quotas for your community, and then you reach that quota, it will disappear from the volunteer registration portal once you hit that threshold. If you don't want that to ever go away, like you want as many as you can get, just change the volunteer quota to like 999 or whatever, big number. All right. Otherwise, once that quota is reached, it will disappear. That region will disappear from the volunteer registration portal, just so people go to other areas that haven't met quota yet. All right. So ideally, you're setting your volunteer quotas. There's a chance to the bulletin board. So when people log into the app, they'll see key details that are specific to their region. So take advantage of those functions. And as an administrator and volunteers, get an idea of if you log in, you'll see this screen displayed, and just take a second to make sure it makes sense. Put yourself in the shoes of the surveyor. Okay. Setting up count teams. So for those that are using region and count team management, some communities say, you can just go into the region level is plenty. We don't need to do count teams. We're not that big. Count teams, another level of granularity, break up a region, like, using Oakland as an example. Maybe you want to have, a limit to how many tracks you're asking, a certain group to cover. And so this gives you an option to choose which tracks you want them to go to, and then add people to that count team. So you're defining the coverage area and you're defining who's in the group. And then you can use the information gathered from the volunteer registration portal to help create those well-balanced count teams. So ideally, you're going to have, we like the idea of 4, teams of 4 or more, and the idea that you've got pairs. We don't want anyone going out alone. Sometimes it's you've got a spotter especially when someone's driving. You've got the idea of a spotter in the driver, so the driver can focus on the road. And then ideally you stop and you get out and you interview people. One person may have the phone and be doing the data capture, and the other person might be asking the questions, or just the idea that you're not doing it alone is the bigger thing. It's up to people how to figure out who's doing what. I mean, they take turns, but support in numbers. So you create your teams, and then within there, you also have there's the ability to designate your team leaders. You can call them captains. You choose what term you want to use, and then they're also have the ability to set up the meetup locations and have a team bulletin board. And those within the app, you can also share the contact information so people can do messaging and coordinate that way. So as far as thinking about your teams, a good, well-balanced team may have outreach providers, people with lived experience, some provider staff, and then, broader community volunteers. So you just think about spreading it all out. Outreach teams that already know certain encampments and coverage areas, ideally you have people go to what they know. It's if they already know all the information about John Smith, theoretically they can just enter John Smith's information and add the other information later if they really wanted to. Working with the regional leader. So as an example, and also help people with lived experience are great guides, especially if they know the turf that you're going to. So just think about the sizing, coverage areas, etc. When you're creating it. And it's as far as getting volunteers and surveyors, again, there's a long list of sources for this, but if you need assistance with draft template press releases to recruit volunteers, let us know. We want this to be successful. Colleges, you've got civic organizations like Kiwanis and Rotary. So colleges tend to have may have a service learning department or some kind of community service outlet. as far as corporations go, a lot of times they have what's called CSR, corporate social responsibility divisions, so you can tap into them. Definitely lean on your county if they're willing to step up and provide staffing. I find in the West the county entities is a bigger government structure than where I was back east. So there's a lot more capacity there. Um, I've seen a lot of success when communities make it a requirement for NOFO scoring to have their nonprofits participate in the count. And I know some people say, well, it's too late for this year. Well, there's also the idea that can be strongly encouraged for this year. You'll see how to do that in a lot of their work. And then later on, it becomes required. Okay, this animated GIF just demonstrates how to assign teams to the count areas. Basically, you're clicking puzzle pieces. If your community does use what we call geographic sampling and enumeration, that means you're going to go to the high probability areas that we already identified using known location data, whether it's through the known location survey or data provided to us with GPS coordinates. And then you're going to also cover a random sample of low probability areas. So when you're defining those areas, you're just basically choosing the ones either blue, which is randomly selected low probability area, or orange. And then for communities that don't use geographic sampling enumeration, just think about your whole region, think how many teams you need, and then ideally, if you use a known location survey, which is free, you have more people go to the areas where there's more, people experiencing homelessness. All right. Anything in the chat so far? Any questions? Not a bad time to take a pause and people have any questions.
Things looking good in the chat now that we've locked the meeting, so we can't get any more Zoom bombers.
Okay. All right. All right. So pre-count to live. Again, hey Don. Feel free to come off mute.
Good morning, Matt. Nice to see you again.
You as well.
So we had a meeting right before this with some of our new users and answering their questions. And we had them download the app and register, but a few of our new users were not given the option to choose a region, and then they couldn't see the demo count until I went into admin and added them to our account.
Okay, I'm trying to remember your setup. Do you have a volunteer registration portal?
We did last year. I don't know what's going on this year.
Okay. Because it's a little nuanced. You wouldn't have the region option. You need a region option. Your volunteer registration portal will tell them, look, I'm sorry, if you have regions and volunteer registration portal, then they can choose the regions that they would like to participate in when they register. And then it's still up to region. We still have to assign them to a region because it's their preferred option. It's not necessarily because they can also choose others they'd want to participate in. So we'd want to get them assigned to a region to make sure. I can show in another screen. I don't want to show your information, but I can use the demo data store just to make sure that everyone is assigned to a region. Let me pull that up. So here's the demo data store. People see that screen? All right. So in here, so you've got users that have been. All right. So yeah, before the count, just put a reminder on your phone, whatever you need to do. The tip, if you're doing the count in the morning, set a reminder the night before to make the count active. And so, and it's just going up to there's a yellow bar up at the top and it says make active. That's it. And again, you can archive surveys that have already been, that are submitted while it's still, it's not really go time. So the beauty of pre-count mode, known location surveys are real. Any observation tallies or surveys are going to be ignored. If anyone wants to go to the demo environment. All right, I don't see settings in the command center. Sorry. Okay. Messaging within Teams. So this is the function inside. So if you need to reach out to people on a team, you can have that. There's a messaging function in there. You can it's always if you have like an internal crew or like your certain people, you get them set up first, mess around with it, because they're gonna get messages from you. And then you're ready to do it for the real deal. All right, monitoring the count. This is the part that was always when we went we went digital for the first time. Like we used to do paper-based counts, like a lot of communities. I've been doing this for a long time. So like in 2004, don't knock me for doing paper-based counts. But we've since evolved. We created the first mobile app for the point in time count, and the big shift for those that were on a paper-based count is you don't need to necessarily be at a certain place. And it's also, you don't have to wait for everyone to come back with their stacks of paper. You're literally seeing the results come in real time. And oftentimes it makes sense for someone to not be amidst the chaos of deployment center logistics and the press and the media and where are my care kits, because there's a lot that goes on with that too. Like we ran out of coffee, whatever the thing is, I need flashlights. Like you're detached from it and someone's just monitoring the count. And for smaller communities, it's not, you can do both, but some of the bigger ones, it's nice to have like, okay, my job is to be making sure everything's going smoothly. And the tech, person behind the scenes watching what's happening. And it can be multiple people to do that. So the list view is really where, again, I tend to live when I'm monitoring an account. It's between maps and lists. You can use the filters to look for like values that aren't people that left blank. You can message people, say, hey, you left a gender off, or you left a race, or what have you. Can you give me some more details? Or hey, on the map view, it looks like you're out in the wrong community. Can you come back? Do you need guidance? So or maybe you'll see someone that's only doing observation tallies and they've done like 80 of them, and it's like, okay, this isn't a race to, to see who can get the most. We actually are trying to get, high quality survey data to work with. Can you pump the brakes and try to engage people? So you'll see everything. Ideally, though, the conditional logic and the controls we have in the app prevent too much craziness. Like it used to be with the paper, people could make up their own races and genders, and then you still have to read their handwriting. But now we have like this drop-down list, so you can't make up your own new race. But yeah, so it's really jump between list view and command and map view, and then if you do want to share a screen for the people coming and going, I like either the map view or the initial dashboard. So messaging users, being there to answer any questions that people have, it's kind of like a logistics, operation too. So I can show this in real time, but if you open up a survey on the response view, it's really just that little arrow. And you can just click it and click open. And if something is bogus, you can archive it. And it's, you're the administrator, so you get to make a decision what's bogus. We had someone that was, I think, trying to inflate their stats for their community, for maybe thinking it was going to bring in more resources. And all the pinpoints were stacked up on someone's like at their residence, and within minutes. So it's like, yeah, these need to go. So we have a message in the chat. Oh, just hello. Hello. All right, editing surveys. So in here, once you open up a survey, You can submit a message back to the person that created it. You can archive a survey. You can change the response values. Maybe you match with someone that gave you the thing that, the piece that was missing. You can move a survey location if you need to. Sometimes this happens for different reasons. One of the ones that in the past I've seen is people will do the surveys and they'll actually finish the data capture from their car or what have you, or do the data capture from their car, even though they have it all in their head. So you need to move it, or it's just over the border of town lines. It's an administrative decision to it's on the other side of the street kind of deal. So there's that. You can also assign tags in here. So the tagging feature may be useful for records that you want to do some potential follow-up on. I know with RVs, for example, there's an idea of making sure that the RV fits the HUD definition of being a place not meant for habitation. And if it is meant for habitation, if it's people that are on cruising the country, it's that's legit. But there's a chance for follow-up and saying, okay, we need to dig back in on this one. And then there's also people create targeted lists out of this. So you can use this to create a by name list. And maybe it's for veterans or for chronic or for youth. And so you can use the tagging feature for that. It's a quick way to filter out the list of responses that you have. And then post count, just to share, we are going to do a whole other webinar about post count. So just know that it exists and we're not done the day of the count. It's worth sharing too that the press and people in the community are going to want results right away. And it's important to let them know that it's a process. We're doing data cleanup. The data still has to be vetted by HUD. It tends to be apt associates that will work with the communities to say, does this make sense? It ties out with the shelter-based count, also the housing inventory charts. So it's a whole process before you can get the data to a point where it's like, okay, we're good to share. And then oftentimes you'll see people do high-level numbers first, and then all of the follow-up analysis and in more in-depth characteristics and demographics will come later. That way it gives them something, it satiates them. Everyone wants to know, did it go up or down? You can potentially lead with that and do the follow-up later. All right. So, as far as making it actionable, there is an opportunity, because you're engaging with all these people at the same time to do targeted follow-up with outreach. If there's things that percolated up that need attention, use it as an opportunity to go back. Is there, any kids in dangerous situations? Is there sites that need to be remediated? Someone that's low hanging fruit, if we just gave this person this benefit, they would be housed, or someone's severely medically compromised that shouldn't be on the streets, and you need to get them out, out into care. There's opportunities potentially in the data capture, especially with trained outreach. You use it as an opportunity. But as far as informing your by name list and coordinate entry, we are seeing, even from our highest performing communities, a pretty low hit rate for the unsheltered population in comparison to coordinate entry in the by name lists. And it's an opportunity to inform how well you're doing with your street outreach for doing that data capture and making sure that people are part of coordinate entry. The HUD prioritization notice is intended to have you focus your PSH on people that are chronically homeless. But if they're not going to the doors of your shelters, then they might not be on the list at all. And so when you think about your $1 million Murrays and Marys, if they're not being in your list, in your universe, but they're still costing the community, significant amount of money with emergency room visits, interactions with police, et cetera, then maybe you need to reevaluate. your recorded entry systems. So it's an opportunity. It's eye-opening, but sometimes you can't fix a problem unless you know it needs to be fixed. And then if you do some data matching with your HMIS systems, so we have a data warehouse called homelessdata.com that we can bring data in. If people are interested in, we could work that, separately and could do a data match and then help fill in some of the blanks. Because ideally in your HMIS system, you've been building and curating the client information over time. Whereas sometimes a one-time engagement with some random pit surveyor, they're not going to give you all the details. But as long as we have enough to uniquely identify someone and do a data match, typically it's, even name and date of birth, but also we have GPS information as well. We can do a match and then make an informed decision of whether or not to update their record. There's the checking data quality piece. Everything's on pointtime.info. There's a support section. So all these links, most of them are pointtime.info and then /support. And you'll see on our support side, resources from HUD, resources from us, FAQs for administrators, FAQs for surveyors, the links to the webinars. We really try to, give you everything we can to make sure it's successful. And a lot of the materials too have been they've been curated over time, a lot of them with each of you helping us make it better. And then again, for support, if you need help, reach out. pet@simtechsolutions.com is the quickest way to get in queue. I understand a lot of you have developed relationships with our, pro services team. And, it's the inclination just like, oh, I'm just going to email Joseph or TJ or Jackie or Matt. But just know that we've got a lot happening and we want to coordinate. And, some people get sick or, take a day off or what have you. And it allows us to work as a team. So if you can please use pit@simtechsolutions.com, that's going to help us help you. All right. So it says Q&A. But I would encourage right now, if people can appease me, before we get into the Q&A, try to submit a survey under the demo account activity. All right. So to go back, you can do it from counting.us, you can do it from your phone. And the setup key, if you want, you can either, let's go back, you can go to change count if you already assigned to yours. And just put in the setup key of demo. All right. And what we're going to see, ideally, if people are participating, is you're going to see your information come in. And you can just do an observation tally if you want, or something really quick. But we'll see your information come into the command center. All right. And then we can react to it. So I'm going to do it right now. And so you'll at least see mine. All right. Maybe I'm the only one playing it out. So I'm going to go to the unsheltered survey. All right. I'm going to speak English. All right. Because the person is in front of me. So an individual. And this is a refresher for some. Some of you have done this, 100 times. The leading question is individual or household. And really it's how they identify. That's a question that actually came up in the office hours with William Snow that just happened, I think, last week. And so you're not forcing that definition on you, but it's like, if it's obvious, it's one thing, but it's a little bit of training. But if it's a household of 2, then you're going to put that in and you'll ask you how many people, let's say 2, it's going to loop through the survey twice. Right. And that's what ties them together in the database constructs as a household. There's 2 different records, but they're tied together with a new household ID that brings them together. And that's important for the different table shells of the point in time report. So you've got your household composition. So for most communities, unaccompanied, individual adults tends to be the table shell with most of the numbers on it. But you do have households with adults and children, adults only households, and children only households. So I'm just going to do, for demo purposes, do individual. Just pick any, Don. If it's a region, just have fun. You know, this is all for fun. So you can't mess up. So it's going to ask me where I am. Again, I can pan the map. I can put in an address. You know, so if I want to be at this park right here, I'll be at Eki Sports Park. I'm gonna hit next. Leading question from almost all the surveys is, have you already been interviewed? And if I say yes, it's going to say, thanks, you know, move on. But for this, I'm going to say no. Same thing. We're qualifying the person in a literally homeless situation. I will share that a lot of communities want to do youth counts at the same time. And it's our strong recommendation not to do that. McKinney-Vento definition is broader and includes, oftentimes includes doubled up and at risk. We do support youth counts. A lot of communities tend to be like the April timeframe. You know, school's still in session. You work with the McKinney-Vento liaisons. It's not right next to your HUD pit count, so it doesn't seem like I just did this. But you're asking different questions of youth than you might ask for the overall population. You can really treat it as a concerted effort. We're just sharing that while I'm at this piece. So outdoor encampment, I'll say that, that's one thing. But if I say I'm in a vehicle or boat, like this, if I had the vehicles and makeshift shelters enabled, then it would ask me how many people are in that, asking for details, and then ask how many people are in that vehicle makeshift shelter with me. So I say van, and then my number, for my response, it's one, but maybe if I was in a household, I'd say three. What we do behind the scenes, we create an average of all those responses, and we use that as a multiplier to create estimates for your community using the vehicle makeshift shelter report. And we've got business logic for that aligns with HUD logic if you want to see that. None of for this survey, none of these, so there's no asterisks. So none of these questions are required. This is our default, more of our default survey instrument. The one question that is required is age range. And I have to stop right clicking here. So these are all multi-select. So just so you know, I'm just again, this is demo purposes, but I'll put my own information here. So initials, if you're hesitant, choose my, so there's three options to getting age. Actual date of birth is one, age is the other, or age range. So you work their way down. If they're not comfortable with date of birth, go to age. If they're not comfortable with age, then it's more of an age range. All right. So I'm going to choose that, which just happens to be true. I'm not lying about my age. I'm right in the middle of that one. And I am a white man. And then all conditional logic. So if you're seeing in your survey instrument, it looks like questions are missing, make sure that, that you understand that we're using conditional logic. So if I say this is my first time homeless, yes, I'm not going to see the questions about, well, how many other episodes have I had? It's only one episode. It's my first time. So we use this to create the chronic homeless definition. So it's this information about homeless history along with the disabling conditions. And then for several of the disabling conditions, there's also a qualifier. Is it of a long and indefinite nature to impede my ability to maintain housing? And it can be wordsmithed differently. That's a lot. If I say no, how long have I been homeless this time? How many other times have I been, how many over the past 3 years, it's been this long. So that trips the, over 12 months, that trips the chronic flag to say, okay, it meets that criteria. Or the other option is it's still 4 to 6 months, but I've been homeless for 4 or more times. That also trips the chronic flag. All right. These questions are optional, and you'll see that in this, but a lot of communities do want to know this information. And if I say I remember the place, this information can be used for research about, proximity, and it may help inform, like, are you creating a magnet from other communities by having more services in the community X, right? So, You know, and also a lot of people say, like, you know, on the West Coast, like, oh, of course you're homeless on the West Coast. Like, I would go to the sunshine too. But in reality, what's kind of, you know, having this data helps inform that conversation. Like, actually, a lot of people are homeless from this community. They just can't afford to live here anymore. You know, because it's really expensive, you know, in some of the West Coast communities. So you have that, and then there are some more sensitive questions, and this is where, you know, we have some training videos on the Syntax site too about, you know, approaching people with you know, humility and how to ask these questions. They're not easy, and this is also too where we, you know, I tend to love to lean into street outreach wherever we can. And ideally, you're capturing this information year round with trained outreach, and you don't put this on your volunteers over time. Like, we're not at that stage nationally, but for the communities that use Show the our mobile tech for street outreach called Show the Way, that's where we're going. It's like, you don't need to put this burden on people that, you know, just want to help out for a day, because it's kind of this is a tough. If anyone's ever done it, these are tough questions. Like, you just met the person. So it is hard. It's important to capture it, to try to.
Matt, quick
know,
question, since we're at time, do we want to show them what those live results look like now that quite a
Oh
few
yeah,
folks
sure.
have submitted
I'll just
surveys?
submit it. So you can mess around with that at your own at your leisure. Um, I just submit it. And then, like, oh, I didn't answer the veteran question. All right, I'm not. All right. And then this is the tag piece that I was mentioning, you know, needs follow-up or whatever. You can create your own tags for your own local purposes. And then save it and done. And that's the park I was at.